Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to Rhodes Smart Camp. I'm a few days late putting out this episode, but nonetheless, I wanted to put out an episode this week, and this might be a little short episode. Um, I just got back from Ireland and been dealing with jet lag, which is kind of fun. You wake up in the middle of the night and, you're falling asleep at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It can be fun if taking a few days to adjust. So there was something that happened to me in Ireland. Someone irritated me. And when I got back, I was talking to Ashna, my best friend, about this. And I said, maybe I'll talk about that on the next episode of the podcast. And she said, nope. The number one rule of the podcast is nobody looks like a jackass. And I had completely forgotten this rule. And this is something that I said for years, back when I used to do interviews with people. If somebody said something they didn't like and they asked me if I would cut it out, or if beforehand they, were saying, I would prefer if you didn't ask me about this or whatever, I would always say, no problem. The number one rule of my podcast is that nobody looks like a jackass. So it's nice to be refreshed in your own words and your own ideology. But I guess today's episode, I guess I'm the one that looks like a jackass. And, for comedy purposes, that's always good when the comedian or storyteller looks like a jackass. But I'm recording this now on Friday. Tomorrow will be 1 week since the greatest Game 7 in the history of World Series Major League Baseball. Now, and I was trying to explain this to some non-American friends of mine that I've spoken to recently, that, when you're a kid, I remember I used to throw the tennis ball against the garage door of our home. I'd be on the length of the cement driveway, and I had a little square that I was aiming for. And, I would pretend like I was pitching in the World Series. And it's always Game 7 in your mind when you're a kid. Every scenario when you're a kid and you're imagining the situation, it's always Game 7 of the World Series, because that's when, the total championship is on the line for all the marbles. So, like when you're batting and you're playing these scenarios in your head as a kid, like you want to hit a home run in Game 7 of the World Series. So I got back to Los Angeles. My flight landed at 7 p.m. on October 31st. Game 7 was last Saturday on November 1st. And I was really excited about it. I think the playoffs were amazing. And then this World Series was the greatest World Series in the history of the sport. And it's interesting. I was following it in Ireland. Like Game 1, I got to watch at my friend's house, Paul Marsh. I stayed at his house, and the game started at 1 a.m. He had all these satellite sports channels. So that was really cool. And then for the rest of the time, the game would come on the games would start at 1 a.m. Ireland time. And so I was looking at the MLB.com website on my phone. And then, they would only show videos after something happened. But there was a little graphic of the batter and then a little box. And then they just show the pitches, ball 1, strike 1, that kind of thing. So really very kind of ancient way to follow the games. But I enjoyed it. And I love baseball. It makes me happy. It reconnects me with my childhood innocence. So here's the story. So I live next to this place called the Farmers Market in Los Angeles. It's at 3rd and Fairfax. And, it's been there since 1934. And I always imagine, there's an old newsstand there, and it's owned by a wonderful man named Paul. I'm on a first name basis with him and all the employees. So I rarely buy newspapers unless it's a big headline. But there's also a little post office in there, and I like being on a first name basis with the people who live in my neighborhood. So it's got all these food stalls. Like, I think when it opened in 1934, I've seen pictures, and it was literally a farmer's market with regional farmers selling their fruits and vegetables and stuff. And then it kind of grew, and, there's every kind of food. It was interesting. Like, it was really great during the pandemic to live next door to it, because when the supermarkets had 1 hour long lines to wait in to get into the supermarket, there was a few places in the farmer's market that stayed open. The produce stands, the 2 meat places, butchers, 2 poultry places, and 1 fish place. And they should always be remembered, Bob's Donuts stayed open throughout the whole pandemic. So it's one of the cool, unique gathering places in Los Angeles, kind of this a city center, if you will. And there's one area where they have a bar. It's like, well, there's a couple little bars in there, but there's the one old bar that's been there forever, and there's open air seating. And in the summertime, like on Friday nights, they'll have like cover bands, and I've seen a lot of great cover bands, Rolling Stones cover bands. Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, he has a band, and like, I know they weren't making any money, and he was paying these people out of pocket, but he had like a 12-piece band with a horn section, and I've seen him play there twice, and I've seen Tom Kenny at different comedy parties and gatherings in the last couple of years, and I've told him how much I loved him. The guy, he's like a full-on soul singer, doing James Brown and Ray Charles and dropping down on his knees. And anyway, I've had a lot of great moments at the farmer's market and the farmer's market bar. Oh yeah, I should say this. It's actually one reason why when I was looking for an apartment in Los Angeles 10 years ago, when I found my apartment, one of the things I thought is, I would love to live next to the farmer's market, because I have so many great memories there. Back in the 90s when I lived here and I had my sitcom, my father was living in Anaheim or Costa Mesa, and my little sister Laura was living in Burbank. And we used to always, we would either meet at the farmer's market for lunch or dinner or whatever, or my dad and my sister and I would meet out at Venice Beach and Santa Monica, and we would all go rollerblading together. And now I have roller skates, big difference. But in the 90s, rollerblades were cool. And it's interesting that to look back on that period when I had this sitcom, there were so many people in my life that I thought, these are my friends, they'll be my friends forever. My management, I had William Morris as an agency, the girlfriend I was seeing. I really thought things were ironclad, that these people were going to be in my life forever. And then the sitcom got canceled, and then all, showbiz went ice cold on me, and these people I thought were my friends, and the girlfriend. I wasn't as cute without a sitcom as I was with a sitcom, apparently. So all these people, went ice cold on me and stopped taking my calls. So looking back on that period, which I've long since made peace with, the 10 years of living in Los Angeles now was worth the exorbitant rents and whatever other hassles I've gone through to pave over those bad memories of next year. It'll be 30 years since when the sitcom was 96 to 97. But looking back on that period, the greatest moments of that period It was not, the rock star pad on top of the Hollywood Hills. It was not, all these cool NBC events that I went to and great concert tickets. It was, I got to tell you a story about Dodger Stadium. It was hanging out with my dad and my sister at the farmer's market or going roller skating. And then also every significant relationship I had from that period 30 years ago, I have taken every woman that has been important in my life to the farmer's market when we were in Los Angeles. And the crepe place was purchased by someone a couple years ago, and it's kind of garbage now. But 20, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago, that was a great place. But there's still great food in there. It's a cool place to watch sporting events. And I'm not, I say I'm not a big sports guy, but the sports that I love are baseball and soccer. And basically for the same reason that, you can be a normal sized human being, or you could be fat, you could be short, and play these sports. One of my favorite baseball players of all time was a pitcher named Jim Abbott. And he was born without one of his hands. And was it his left hand? I'm not sure which one. But this guy was so remarkably skilled because he would throw the ball from the pitcher's mound, and then in one motion, he would switch the glove from the arm with no hand to the arm with the hand. And he'd put one motion, he'd throw the ball, switch the glove to his throwing hand so he could field the ball. Guy was just incredible. So, the story I wanted. Oh yeah. So I love baseball because it reminds me of my childhood innocence, and then living in Europe, and then also taking 4 trips to Argentina to visit my cousins down there. I love World Cup soccer. I love when different countries are playing each other. And it's so exciting to see like African countries playing Asian countries, or European countries playing South American countries. I just, when the World Cup is on, I lose my mind and I can think of nothing else. And the World Cup is coming up in the United States next summer, which is exciting. But the little tip I wanted to tell you is, my television, I don't have cable. I have Netflix, I have HBO, but I use it basically for just watching movies. And I'm never, and it's in my little side room. In my living room, I do not have a television. I have all my books and my music. So for all of my sporting events, I go to the farmer's market bar to watch these things. So before I tell you this story about Game 7, I wanted to, this when the World Series was on, I thought of this story. And I know I've told it before, but I know it's been many years since I told the story because I hadn't thought of it in many years. But when I had my sitcom on NBC, I was dating this beautiful actress. I was so in love with her. And I probably focused too much on, her opinions and the relationship. I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of factors. I have since forgiven myself. You need to forgive yourself for not forgiving yourself sooner, I always like to say. But anywho, this woman could be problematic or argumentative at the slightest or imagined provocation. So, and there's been times in my life where it blows my mind when you're in the perfect situation, and this is really like kind of a red flag for relationships. When you have when you're in the perfect situation, in the perfect setting, in the perfect everything, for someone to still find a fault in you and be irritated or pissed off, you know, I mean, hey, I was in this situation just a few years ago. I mean, you know, as much as we like to declare, this is how we are, this is what I won't tolerate, you know, with the right circumstances, you could be put in any situation. So here was the situation. So from when I lived in San Francisco in the 90s, and I'm still great friends with all these people. It used to be the Bill Graham Corporation, the famous concert promoter. And what was it, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, they got purchased by Live Nation. So it's kind of a, you know, it kind of got swallowed up by this big company. But a lot of these great friends who used to work for Bill Graham are still working for Live Nation. But nonetheless, the point of this story is I used to get, you know, one of my favorite bands of all time is the Rolling Stones. It's interesting. My favorite city is Paris. My favorite band is Rolling Stones. You know, most people in the world would say their favorite city is Paris. Their favorite band is the Rolling Stones. So, okay. I'm not so original in that. But, you know, my third and fourth choices, second, third, and fourth, and fifth choices are probably more unique than others. But here we go. Here's the story. I had the greatest hookup for concerts. Like when I lived in San Francisco, oh my God, in the early 90s, I saw Pearl Jam, I saw Lenny Kravitz, Blind Melon, everybody. All that great music that was happening in the 90s. So it was, I want to say it was on Halloween. I'm not sure if it was 1996, 1997. Somewhere, I mean, I'm sure you could find out, you know, if I Googled things. If I was a podcast that had a helper, like all these podcasts I've done, like you talk about something and they pull up a video instantly or they pull up the clip instantly. This is just a one-man operation, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going on my memory. But I want to say it was Halloween, 1996, 1997, somewhere in that area. And the Rolling Stones were playing at Dodger Stadium. So watching the World Series reminded me of this. And Dodger Stadium, you know, when it was built, there's a whole story that there was all these like homeless people and Mexican-American people that were like living there, people that were displaced in order to make Dodger Stadium at Chavez Ravine. But I love baseball, and I have watched so many games at Dodger Stadium, and there is not a bad vantage point in that entire stadium. I've sat up in the upper decks. I've sat in the outfield. I've sat in the lower level. I've sat. One time I got to a friend from Live Nation took me, and we were in the box seats, and then you can go down. The people in those seats that are right behind home plate, there's like some downstairs. You can't see it, you know, when you're in the stadium or watching on TV. But those people in those seats behind home plate, you can go down these stairs and there's this full buffet. And it's a great buffet of like every kind of meats and salads and vegetables and fish and desserts. And, you know, you can bring it back to your, I'm surprised you don't see more people like gnawing on turkey legs or lobster claws while the game's going on. But so the Rolling Stones, for this concert at Dodger Stadium, the stage was set up in center field. And then because of my connection with Bill Graham people, I was in the 8th row. So where there's the infield dirt, and I guess, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think I was like on that kind of like dead center of the stadium. on the grass right beyond the second base where the dirt is. So I'm in the 8th row for the Rolling Stones at Dodger Stadium, and my seats were so good, and I swear to Jesus, this is true. My seats were so good. Jack Nicholson was seated in the seat behind me. Now, if you remember at that time in the 90s, Jack Nicholson, he went to every home Lakers game, and he would be sitting on the front row on the court side. So Jack Nicholson was kind of famous at that time for always having the best seats to any sporting event or concert or whatever. So it was pretty mind-blowing that Jack Nicholson was seated right behind me. So during the concert, and I'm all excited, and I remember, and I had long hair and the cowboy boots and jeans and t-shirt, and I remember back then I was such a weed lover. I had this pipe. It was a great pipe. It was a jester. The head of it, where the bowl is, was the head of the jester, and then on the and here's the beautiful part. It was a red, white, and blue jester marijuana pipe. So an American clown or an American comedian pipe. It was perfect. It's funny, that pipe, like when I moved to Amsterdam in 2000, I dated Aniek for 2 years, and she was from a small town in the north of Holland, and she was a really sweet woman. Her parents were school teachers, and she wanted to settle down and have a family. But I was too much of a wild man back then, and I was traveling all over Europe, and I was like partying my brains out. So I remember when her and I broke up, I got the late night talk show on Dutch television, and I lived in for the first 2 months we were filming that show. Maybe it was just 1 month, but it was at least a month. I lived at the American Hotel right on Leidseplein. And I had there's a canal on the side, and I had there's only like 7 or 8 rooms on the side that have a balcony. So I had one of these balcony things on the side. So after her and I broke up, I was really happy to get that TV show, but I felt bad that I had lost this great woman because I was partying too much. And that American flag jester pipe, I threw into the canal in Amsterdam. And that's what happened to that pipe. But I had it for a few years. I was really proud of it. And then for one moment of shame, I thought, I need to change. And I threw it in the canal. But here's the best moment for that pipe and how that pipe made it to Jack Nicholson's lips. So we're watching the concert. Me and she was from Montreal, the woman I was dating, the actress, head over heels in love with her. So we're in the 8th row, watching the Rolling Stones, and I think this was the Bridges to Babylon tour, if I'm not mistaken. Or it was either Bridges to Babylon or Voodoo Lounge. But I waited until the Rolling Stones did one of their new slow songs. I'm not going to turn around and bother Jack Nicholson during, Jumpin' Jack Flash or Sympathy for the Devil or, Can You Hear Me Knocking or whatever. So I scraped out the pipe, and I'm thinking, I'm going to do this, man. This is going to be so cool. I'm going to smoke pot with Jack Nicholson in Dodger Stadium during the Rolling Stones concert. So I scraped it out, and I packed him a fresh bowl of weed. And during one of the Rolling Stones' new slow songs, and I had to muster up the courage to do this, I turned around to Jack Nicholson, and I leaned in and I said, "Mr. Nicholson, would you like some marijuana? Or can I offer you some marijuana?" And he's really old now, but he's still, And as much of a badass dude as he was, he moved like an old man at the time. I'll never forget. He like leaned in and he put his face like right over the bowl, and he sees that it's all green marijuana, and he puts his face over it to examine it. And then he looks up at me, and he looks at me in the eye, and he goes, "Aren't you having any?" And I said, I did. I wanted to offer you a fresh bowl. And then Nicholson shrugs, and with his left hand takes the pipe, with the right hand takes my Bic lighter, and he took this like heroic swat off of my beautiful American flag jester pipe, and he blew this massive cloud up into the sky. And then he hands me the pipe back and he goes, "Thank you." And it was so perfectly executed, everything about this moment. And I turned around and like, I didn't stumble. I didn't say anything stupid. I didn't embarrass myself. I didn't make the man feel uncomfortable. And I just felt this complete feeling of victory as I turned back around. And then the woman that I was dating at the time, she leans into me and she goes, "Aren't you going to offer his girlfriend any?" So now I've done something wrong. And I said, and I was refusing to turn around. I was like, no, that is on Jack. If Jack wants his girlfriend to have some, he could tap me on the shoulder, or at that moment, he could have turned to her and handed her the pipe. He knows her better than I do. But anyway, so that was like an issue. Like there was always some kind of issue where, everything could be perfect. Everything, in the best restaurant, the best vacation, still there was some little thing that made this person unhappy. And, wow. I heard it said many years ago in a church service that, we're always praying in gratitude for what we have in our life and the people that we have in our life. But you should also remember to pray and thank God for the people who are not in your life. So it's funny. So I've been to Dodger Stadium so many times, and I rarely remember that moment. But I remembered it during the World Series, that when you look at that playing field, I stood in the center of Dodger Stadium and kind of smoked pot with Jack Nicholson during a Rolling Stones concert on Halloween or near Halloween. And, that's pretty fucking cool any way you slice it. So let's talk about this Game 7 of the World Series that just passed. So, so because I was dating that woman in Toronto a few years ago, like during the pandemic, I really got into the Toronto Blue Jays. There's nothing more exciting than the home run in baseball when the batter knocks the ball out of the stadium. And Vladimir Guerrero, I think he's like, you got Ohtani for the Dodgers, and everyone says he's the Babe Ruth of today. And you got Aaron Judge for the Yankees, and Vladimir Guerrero, and they're the three best home run hitters of baseball right now. But in my opinion, I think Vladimir Guerrero is the most exciting home run hitter right now. And that catcher, Cal Raleigh for the Seattle Mariners, he hit 63 home runs, something like that this year. And he has a silly mustache. He looks like Mario from the Donkey Kong game. But anyway, so like during the pandemic, I witnessed the suicide in 2020. And then one of the things that to help me get over it, I started getting back into baseball cards, going to the flea market every Sunday at Fairfax High School, not far from me. There's a guy that sells baseball cards, old baseball cards for like $1 each. And it just, brought me peace it soothed the trauma I had experienced to just flip through these boxes. Oh, and there was that one time, was this, I guess this was 2021. I'm sitting there and people would always, the guy Jeff who runs the stand there, he would always pull up a chair and let me sit behind the tables to look through the thing. So people would always think I would work there and would ask me how much is this, how much is that, and I would always say the cards are $1 each. And Jeff, who runs the booth, was always tickled. But anyway, so 2021, I was sitting there looking through the baseball cards, and Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez walked up. And Jennifer Lopez was looking at these old like Life magazines. And then Ben Affleck comes and he's standing right in front of me and he's looking through the baseball cards right across the table from me. And he thinks I work there. And he goes, "How much are the cards?" And I said, $1 each. And he goes, "Cool." And so he's flipping through it. And I'm just sitting there. And then I just asked him, I said, "Who's your favorite Boston Red Sox of all time?" And he goes, "Carlton Fisk." And I said, "Good choice." And that was it. Those were all, again, perfectly executed. Didn't bother the guy. There was one time in New York City many years ago, I rode an elevator with Lou Reed. And I didn't say a word to him because I love him and respect him so much. So these little brief brushes with greatness are always good stories. But during the pandemic, I got a subscription to Major League Baseball, the app for the TV, so I could watch games. But it's a stupid thing they do where you cannot, like if you live in Chicago, you can't watch the Chicago teams. If you live in LA, you can't watch the LA teams because they've already sold the broadcast rights to local cable television. So, I mean, it was like, what, $99 for the year? And I was watching a lot of Blue Jays games. So I fell in love with these players. They traded Marcus Semien. They traded Teoscar Hernandez, a couple guys I loved. But Bo Bichette had long hair at the time. And my friend Charles, my guy who I always talk baseball with, and I send him cool baseball books when I come across them. He doesn't do comedy anymore. He used to do stand-up in San Francisco and LA, and now he's living in upstate New York and working like a regular thing. Anyway, my friend Charles back then, he would call Bo Bichette the Tom Rhodes of baseball because he had long hair and he hustled. And anywho, so here's my story. So I grew some affection for the Toronto Blue Jays. And several weeks ago, right before the baseball playoffs started, I was performing in Reno, Nevada. And I never gamble, not a gambler. Every World Cup, I will put down $100 on the team I think will win. And I won last time, Argentina, and the previous one I had bet France. So I won the last 2 World Cups. And those are the only times I bet. So this time I thought, the Blue Jays were a real long shot to win the World Series. It was like, 8.5, 8.5, something like that. Anyway, so I bet $100 several weeks ago that the Blue Jays would win the World Series. And if they won the World Series, I would have won $850. So I'm following the World Series on this, on the website in Ireland. I make it back just in time for Game 7. So I was all excited. I go over to the Farmers Market bar, and, during the World Cup, it's cool. There'll be a lot of people there, and it's great when that whole area, hey, next World Cup, please come over there. Join me. You'll find me there. Buy me a Bob's Donut. I like the maple bars. And come watch the World Cup with me next summer. because I don't miss a game if I can help it. And I go over there. So it's always great when it's crowded during the World Cup, but for that Game 7, I have never seen so many people at the Farmers Market bar. And they're all wearing Dodger shit. I mean, we're in Los Angeles, of course. Everybody wants the Dodgers. So I got there a little early, and there's the bar, and then there's like this little island bar with like 4 or 5 stools, and then you have the lower tables. So I was at the first row of lower tables with a good view of there's 2 television sets. So place is packed. Everybody wants the Dodgers. And so there's these guys like kind of standing in front of me, but a little to the right, not blocking me. Men that are probably about my own age. And so this one redheaded guy seemed like a cool guy. He keeps buying pitchers of beer for his buddies. And it's a big round table that could seat 4 or 5, probably 5 chairs around it. And I'm the only one there. And the guy turns to me and he goes, "Do you mind if I put these pitchers here?" And I said, no, not of course, please. And so they're drinking the pitchers. And then later, these men, their wives and their children came. There was like 3 little kids and 2 wives. Maybe there was 4 men there. So, it was a couple of their wives and kids. And the wives and the kids sit at the table. So they kind of, took over my space, but I didn't give a shit. I'm not going to sit at all these chairs, right? I don't care. The more the merrier. But so the dude who bought the pitchers keeps buying pitchers of beer for his friends. He keeps like fist bumping me every time the Dodgers do something. And the whole crowd is into this game. So I'm the only one secretly cheering for the Blue Jays. And what a game. The pitchers, Max Scherzer for the Blue Jays versus Ohtani for the Dodgers. These are 2 future Hall of Famers. And Scherzer was just a beast. He's pissed. He's a monster. And he's just so into it. And the Blue Jays are winning the game. They're like in the 3rd inning, Bo Bichette hits this 3-run homer off of Ohtani. And it was that moment that you dream of as a little kid. And Bo Bichette grew up in the Orlando area in Florida. So that's another reason why I have an affinity and affection towards Bo Bichette. He hit this home run and he knew it was out. It was just like, he didn't even start running. He just smacked it and stopped to admire it. And then Shohei Ohtani, the Babe Ruth of baseball, who's also a phenomenal pitcher, he sees that the ball's going out and he lowers his head. It was like a scene in a movie where the hero smacks this home run ball and then the other hero lowers his head in defeat. It was so beautiful. So I was enjoying. I'm like, I'm watching this game, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna win $850, man. And it was such an exciting baseball game, and the Blue Jays were ahead the whole time. Place is going crazy. The dad who keeps getting a beer, this guy is getting drunker and drunker, and yes, he's enjoying himself and everything. I saw my dad and relatives getting pickled, but I'm glad I don't drink alcohol anymore. And total clarity. And these guys are getting plastered, and then so he goes beyond just fist bumping me, redheaded dad guy. Now he's every time the Dodgers do something good, this guy's going all over the bar and fist bumping everybody. At one point, I think it was at the beginning of the 9th inning, the bartender wearing a Dodgers shirt stands up on the bar and he says, "This is a Dodgers bar and I want to hear some excitement," and everybody cheers. And I mean, like, if you were for the Dodgers, this was like the greatest. Oh, and there's another thing I forgot to say at the beginning that I wanted to point out is, I love baseball so much that one of my favorite things about baseball is to go to a stadium, but to buy a hat and cheer for the home team in a baseball stadium I think is one of the most enjoyable things in the world. And for me, the greatest moment during a baseball game is in the middle of the seventh inning when everybody sings "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and then you say your name of the home team in the because it's root for the Dodgers. It's in the song. It's root for the home team, but in the stadium, wherever the home stadium is, you say that team's name. So there's been times through the years, like I remember a long time ago in Atlanta, this guy that worked at the Punchline, he brought his little nephew. We went to see a Braves game, and the kid was like 8 years old, and I got he and I both Braves hats. And I told him, there's nothing better than cheering for the home team and being a part of that. And back at the time, official Major League Baseball hats were only $20. Now they're $40. But that's a small expense to pay to make a memory for a child that will last with them forever. And that kid will have that hat until he loses it, but the memory will be there, and usually the kid will hang on to it. Like I remember my friend Kathy Sorbo, her daughter's like probably, I don't know, 25 now, 27, 28. Like 20 years ago, we went to a Mariners game, and it was the same thing. I bought a hat for me, and I bought a hat for her daughter, and I have this great picture of her. She's like 10 years old. And she's a little kid with the Mariners hat on. And she loves the Mariners. She's from Seattle. But like it's a small price to pay to give someone such a beautiful memory like that. So it's funny that I have this philosophy of that it's so great to be, cheering for the home team. And, I was a Giants fan for years from living in San Francisco, and I still love the Giants. But I'm not going to deprive myself of being a Dodger fan. And especially they have all these great Japanese players, which is really exciting. Ohtani and then Yamamoto. And Yamamoto was the most valuable player during the World Series. And he pitched some of the Game 7 and I think Game 5. And just, he was the most valuable player because, the guy was unhittable. And basically was the dominant force that helped the Dodgers win the World Series. So, anywho, so it's really interesting, and this is probably why I shouldn't gamble at all. But, for this $100 bet, I sacrificed being a part of this home, the city I live in. And I've lived in Los Angeles longer than I've lived anywhere in my life. I sacrificed cheering for the home team because I had put this bet for $100 down that could win me $850. So the whole game, I'm like quietly, secretly, and I didn't do any fist pumps or anything when the Blue Jays did something great. And the Blue Jays have this player named Addison Barger, and he hit a home run. I think he won. Was it one of the games he hit a home run that I can't remember the details, but he hit a crucial home run in the World Series. But I saw some story on him where he's from a really wealthy family in Seattle, and his dad built a professional baseball field in the backyard of their mansion. And the dad loved baseball. I guess kind of like the relationship I had with my dad, but if we were super rich, my dad would have built a baseball field in the backyard. So he had like minor league players like paying him to train the kid as he's growing up. and then at one point, his dad sent him to the Dominican Republic so he could learn to play aggressive professional baseball. So just an amazing story, this guy, Addison Barger, and so many stories of different players that are just so heroic. So Addison Barger is a really handsome guy, aside from growing up in a family of privilege. And my friend Charles in upstate New York, we were texting, and I texted him that Addison Barger looks like one of the Three Musketeers. And then the next batter after him is Alejandro Kirk, who's the catcher for the Blue Jays. And he's a very portly man. And then my friend texted back, Alejandro Kirk looks like he ate the Three Musketeers. So, and Alejandro Kirk, there's another story. He's from Tijuana, Mexico. And again, you don't need to be like a tall, muscular, person to play baseball. Alejandro Kirk is amazing. He's one of the reasons that the Blue Jays made it to the World Series and did so well in the World Series. And he's one of the greatest catchers in the sport. And he's a portly man, and he smacks the living shit out of the ball. So anyway, I'm watching the game, texting my friend Charles, and the Ernie Clement, this guy for the Blue Jays. What did he? Oh my God! There was a point where he scored. He hit a really important home run, but then there was another part of the game where he slid into home plate, and he had his foot up in the air, and he just looked like a kid having the time of his life. And it reminded me, one of my, there's a couple of baseball films I love. I love The Natural with Robert Redford. It's a cheesy baseball film, but it makes me feel good every time I see it. And then 62 Asterix. The film is called 62 with an asterisk. And it's about Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle when they were hitting. They were both the home run leaders, and then Roger Maris broke Babe Ruth's single season home run record. And there's a line in there where the Mickey Mantle character says, if you can't have fun playing baseball, there's something wrong with you. So that's what reminded me when Ernie Clement came sliding across the plate. But, the thing about baseball is even the best team can be beaten on a certain day under whatever circumstances that happen. So during the ninth inning, Will Smith, the good Will Smith, not the one that smacked Chris Rock at the Oscars, he's the catcher for the Dodgers. So it's the ninth inning, and I had to go to the bathroom. I had to pee. And I'm like, okay, shit. Nothing's going to happen for whatever the length it takes me to run and go to the bath. That's why you should always only go to the bath between innings. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be. So I run to the bathroom real quick. And then as I'm coming out, the whole farmer's market just exploded. And these people went crazy cheering, and they're jumping up and down. Drunk redheaded dad is like, he's running, he's fist bumping, he's hugging everybody. Everyone but his children. And it was just a scene of complete joy, jubilation, and emotional ecstasy. The people were so happy. And then I saw on the replay that Will Smith hit this home run to win the game for the Dodgers. So it's kind of funny that, I was the only one there not cheering for the Dodgers. I just thought that everything, the tariffs, the 51st state talk, all this shit that I think has been so insulting to the Canadian people. I thought it would be so poetic because the whole country of Canada was cheering for the Blue Jays. But there's some forces that can't be beat, like the Dodgers and the Yankees. They always have the best teams because they pay for the best players, and they I don't know. Let's not delve too far into the analysis, but the overall feeling that I'm left with is that I shouldn't gamble. I'm not a gambler, but I don't know. I mean, in that situation, my favorite color is blue. They're both blue teams. The Dodgers, Dodger blue, the Blue Jays, and in my lifetime, that was the greatest Game 7 World Series of all time. And just to watch it where I did, to be around those people. Drunk redheaded dad's hugging me. He has no idea that, I was cheering for the other team. And it was just a moment of pure joy that I'll never forget. And again, I guess it was worth it to live so close to the farmer's market, where I've had a lot of great memories with people I loved. And, Los Angeles has been through a lot of shit. I mean, if you look at it like that, I mean, January was the Malibu fires, which greatly affected the woman I was dating, the woman I'm still in love with. Her and I broke up in the spring. It was as a kind of a fallout from just the emotional heaviness that went with those fires. I mean, and that was a strange couple of months in Los Angeles after the fires in Malibu in January and Altadena. But the strike a couple years ago, and just a lot of bad shit has happened to Los Angeles. So I should have factored that in to the scenario when I was. But anyway, a couple weeks ago, betting in Reno, the odds for the Dodgers winning the World Series was like 2-1 or something. Like if I would have bet $100, I would have only won $100. So there, so betting on the underdog. Anyway, I don't want to justify it. I'm not a gambler. It's why I stopped doing hard drugs years ago, was I realized what a waste of fucking money it was. So gambling is a complete waste of money. And, and it's funny. I have a lot of Dodgers hats, and so I've been wearing my Dodgers hat this past week. And it's funny, going to the supermarket at Trader Joe's, and hey man, and people like giving me the thumbs up and yeah, go Dodgers. And then is a Latino man of some flavor at the cashier at Trader Joe's, and then he and I had this great conversation about the Game 7 while he's ringing up my groceries, and just he was so excited to retell the story. And that is the great thing about sports, is like people that you might not have something in common with, that you have a common ground. Like me and this man, because I had a Dodgers hat on, we instantly become, comrades in, that we're sharing the same joy, and here's a story about my cousins in Argentina. I love these people so much. And whenever I go to LA or whenever I go to Argentina, I always try and bring them presents of something affordable that I could bring. So like I went there, what was it? I went there in February and March 2023. And there's like 6 cousins, and I brought them LA Dodger hats. I had like a couple that I already had, but then I think I had 3 that I had accumulated through the years. But then I bought like 3 more because I didn't want to leave anybody out. And I have one cousin named Eduardo. And Eduardo likes to windsurf. He's a beautiful guy. And so he'll go to Brazil, to certain water areas or different places in Argentina, and to go windsurfing. And he's always wearing this blue LA Dodgers hat that I gave him. And I was just communicating with him this morning. It's the great thing about technology. I can stay in touch with my cousins and write in the translation app. And I let him know that the Dodgers had won the World Series, and that hat I gave him is of the baseball world champions. And he wrote back and he said, I wear that hat all the time. It always makes me think of you. And I know he wears it all the time because he's posting on social media and I see him wearing it. So anywho, baseball brings people together, even if you're not rooting for the same team. So I think that's all that I have to say. That's today's ramble. And I love you very much. The world is very complicated and there's a lot of shit to worry about. But somewhere at a flea market, there's a great baseball card waiting for you. And it's only $1. Yeah. Hooray for humanity. And hooray for whatever gets you in touch with your childhood innocence. Yeah. Comedy, baseball, Tom Rhodes. We all love you. Okay, that's it.
Jose, can you hear that Tom Rhodes is here? T-O-M-M, R-H-O, D-S-E-S, the mother with the mazel for sure. Jose, can you hear that Tom Rhodes is here? T-O-M-M, get it, R-H-O, D-S-E-S, the mother with the mazel for sure.